Let's take a look at how not to persuade. This is a clip from the British TV show Dragon's Den, which is similar to the show in the US and Australia called Shark Tank. And it is a show where hopeful entrepreneurs will turn up in the den and try to get investment from the dragons, who are basically rich people, titans of industry, who may or may not invest in their product or tear it to pieces. It's an interesting look at persuasion because it doesn't go very well, I'll tell you that right now. Why it doesn't go well and how it could have gone better is what I want to explore. Just before we get going, this is Duncan Ballantyne. He is one of the dragons. It starts off with this shot of him where he has this kind of unnerving habit of subconsciously using his middle finger to scratch his face, or you'll see later he props it up with it. I think it's a rude and subtle unintentional but possibly subconscious non-verbal that I would, if I were coaching him to do anything, I would say watch out for that. It's kind of rude.
Hello, my name's Jude Camplin. This is Chrissy Shaw. We've come here today for investment in our two companies, Evolution Solutions and Evolve Through Training. The investment we're looking for is £150,000 for 20%. Evolution Solutions is a construction company which champions women in the construction industry. That means that wherever possible, we employ women tradespeople.
You can see it started to go pretty badly.
Evolution Solutions started trading in September 2005.
So what's making it go badly? You can listen to it. You can hear it in her voice with this mouth breathing. I know I say it a lot, but it's true. What is associated with fight or flight responses is sharp breaths through the mouth. You know, mouths. You know this because when you get frightened, when somebody sort of jumps out of a cupboard to surprise you, what do? You take a big mouth breath into the top of your chest. As much as mouth breathing is associated with fight or flight, it will also cause a fight or flight response. So you can get stuck in a runaway cycle of hyperventilation. That's what I think is happening to her at the moment. She started to get a bit nervous, but you can hear this because what's happening is her brain's saying, I don't have enough oxygen. There is this bizarre effect where as you overbreathe, you get all of this oxygen in your blood, but it actually struggles to get to your brain because your body thinks, oh, there's a fight or flight situation. I should devote that to the muscles. So your blood glucose goes up, adrenaline goes up, oxygen content in the blood goes up, but oxygen content in the brain goes down. She's panicking. She's on panic stations now. What I would recommend if you find yourself in this situation is just slow down and breathe through your nose. If you're taking sharp, audible breath through your mouth, you are panic breathing and it's just going to get worse.
Nerves are getting the better of Jude. She'll have to regain her composure quickly to stand any chance.
So I just want to give a quick tip on this. I was, you might be interested to know, a Bollywood actor for 5 years. I acted in film and TV, and I was on a chunk of reality shows. Both in India, I was on a reality show. I was a host on a reality show as well. I was a dater on First Dates, and I was also in a BBC thing about wedding planners back when I was a wedding planner. And based on that experience, I want to suggest to you this shot I think is probably a pickup from later. And a pickup is a shot where you've shot the whole pitch, you're done for the day, but before you wrap up and go home, they go, hey, can we just have just catch a couple of pickups with you? And the pickups are when you sit there and they'll go, now pretend a pitch is going well, and you go, there's nobody in the room. Oh, now pretend it's going badly. Again, nobody in the room. They're just doing these shots so they can put it in clips later on. The reason I think that is just such an incredibly rude thing to do while somebody's panicking. And it's what everybody thinks is happening when they're panicking. While she's there having her panic attack, she thinks that everybody's going, oh, this is terrible. I don't want to invest in them. And now, look, we would probably prefer to invest in somebody who seems calm, comfortable, competent, like they've got all the facts at their disposal and are adequately able to explain them, because that's some of what I'm investing in, your ability to explain this to your customers, for example. but we don't revel in somebody else failing. We want people to win inherently. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, and also why I mentioned that I think this bit, I don't think he's really doing that right then and there in the moment. I certainly hope he's not.
Of persuading the dragons to invest.
Oh, she's making it worse. That helpful attempts at being helpful, I think, invariably make it
women in the
worse.
construction industry.
Good, she's back on track.
Housing associations have to hit diversity targets. We solve that problem for them. There are some environments men just can't go into. There's refuges, sheltered housing. We also have a lot of anecdotal evidence which also says that customers just prefer women in their homes. You know, that's probably because of the much televised pot-bellied builder rummaging through your knicker drawer.
So look at how much he's smiling now. That the much televised pot-bellied builder rummaging through your knicker drawer. That's a really funny vignette or little story, something that I can visualise. It also perfectly encapsulates some of the problem that you are solving. Most persuasion works if you go, here's the problem, now here's my solution, rather than just go follow the solution, follow the solution. So here would be my recommendation. Start with that. I would lead with, ladies, you all know the issue, right? You're about to hire a builder to do a little bit of work on your house and you think, is this pot-bellied builder going to go rummaging through my knicker drawer? We all know that feeling. We help solve that problem. The reason I would recommend to lead with it is multiple reasons, really. One of them is, look how much it's got your audience on side. If they're on side with you, if they're laughing along with their jokes, they'll like you more. Plus, that laughter shows that they are seeing this from your angle. They are able to see through your eyes. So not only is a rapport building, but the understanding of this problem you're about to solve for them will also be solved. And the third reason I think is potentially the most important, and that is this will help you down-regulate that stress response. Of course, you're going to be nervous in that pitch situation. The first time you pitch this idea, probably the first 100 times you pitch this or any idea, it's an inherently stressful situation. Don't get stuck in your head that some of us don't get stressed. I do a lot of presenting and pitching to people and I still get stressed about it. Stress can just be a good thing. It's about how do you manage it. And if you can lead off with something funny, relatable, easy to visualize that adequately encapsulates your problem or your solution or something to do with what you're pitching, it will help you suddenly calm down, feel comfortable and recognize, hey, these people are on my side.
That, you know, gets that perception, but it's out there and it is about trust. Chris is going to talk about evolve through training.
Right. There's two sides to the business. As you've heard, there's the building company. We also have an academy. Right. The academy is set out over 3 sites.
That's the other thing you just noticed when she stops presenting, you don't stop. Like your presentation starts the moment they lay eyes on you, and that persuasion continues until long after they've stopped seeing you. So notice how she switches off here and goes to like, oh, it's like they can still see you. Just look at your partner, nod along with what they're saying, look at your audience, just stand there stony faced, better than, and don't take mouth breath through the nose, low, slow, and through the nose. I got that from dynamic breathing, but it's a really useful rule.
Company. We also have an academy. Right. The academy is set out over 3 sites in Derby, and it was designed specifically to deliver good quality construction training to everyone. The academy will deliver City and Guilds accredited training through intensive courses in 5 aspects of the construction trades. I'll hand you back to Jude.
That's gone pretty
well.
We
want an academy and a construction company in every major city of the UK within 10 years. We also want to see a woman on every building site within 5 years.
Now that's really interesting to me. We want a woman on every building site in 5 years. That's a really interesting stat. If it's the case that that isn't the case of building sites that just do not have a single woman on them, that's an interesting one I would consider leading with, going that's not the case, so that you can then come back to that at the end of your pitch. We love a bit of recursion, a bit of repetition. I would have come back to that at the end and gone, this is what we plan on having by the end, because it's a very interesting stat and somewhat helps pose the problem that they're solving, which is there aren't enough women in construction. Now, some of what you also want to be mindful of that we're going to delve into next is you need to be constantly aware if you're trying to persuade somebody, particularly an investor, but I would say we're all investing something, time, money, effort. Aligning our views is a bit of an investment. And that is, what's in it for me? Listen to the next bit and ask yourself, are they really presenting a value to somebody else or an imperative that is sort of important for all of us?
So thank you for your time, and please ask any questions.
Thank you.
After a shaky start, Jude and Chrissy have made it through their pitch. They're asking for £150,000, but the 20% equity they're offering in return is split between two companies. It's an unusual deal, and Deborah Meaden needs some clarification.
I need to understand those two companies. How?
So often when people pitch, they go, oh, but they ask so many questions. That's a bad thing. No, it's a fantastic thing. And I would do exactly what they've done here. If you look at this taskbar along, this progress bar along the bottom, they've spent about a quarter of their time presenting the actual idea, and now they're about to spend 3/4 of their time responding to questions. That is fantastic. If they're really interested in your product, they will have lots of questions. And if you take up most of that time pitching to them, hoping to solve all of those problems, a few things happen. One, you run out of time. You don't have enough time for them to deal with all their questions. Quite often at these events, they're chugging through these pitches. Second, we don't mind having to pull that information out of you, because I get to pull out the information that I specifically want, and then I'm going to apportion it greater value or more relevant to me because it's an answer to my question, not just part of your overall presentation. That said, this is a fairly crucial bit of the pitch, and that is, we've said you're going to get 20% of these two businesses, that you're going to get 20%, and then we've talked about two businesses. We haven't talked about how that balance goes. I would say those kind of crucial things you probably do want in your pitch. It could also be the problem that they churn through a lot of pitching time with the hyperventilating and stuff like that.
How does that work?
Evolution Solutions has been trading a lot longer. Evolve Through Training is launching in August, as Chrissy said.
Okay, and what's the turnover on Evolve Through Training?
We're probably looking at about 500,000 in the first year.
So there's no, at the moment, no turnover in either of the businesses?
No, Evolution Solutions has been trading since September 2005, and up until April we turned over only about £150,000.
And out of the 150,000, how much does that drop into profit?
I'm going to be totally honest, not a lot. This year we've made a loss.
Are you offering us 20%?
So, if I was going to be, well, I will be honest, we haven't made much. We've actually made a loss. Chunk of problems with this as an approach. For one, I would encourage you to avoid this, I'm going to be honest with you, let me be straight with you, or if I was going to be honest, those kind of phrases, because they propose the idea of dishonesty. And while I don't think it's the case that people lie right after they say, if I'm going to be honest with you, it is certainly in people's heads. What it definitely does at barest minimum is propose the idea of thinking about being deceptive. So now we've got the idea of deception in our heads. Not a helpful thing if you're trying to propose that you're being honest or you're trying to take a significant chunk of money off somebody. Then to say we haven't made much, and then to follow that up with actually we've made a loss, now it starts to look like you are actually lying to us, because, oh, well, I'm going to be, well, if I was going to, well, I will be honest, we haven't made much. Well, that's suggesting we have made some, just not much. And now we're going, actually, we've made a loss in the last year. All of that's a bit of a mess. Now, when you're presenting an idea to somebody, there is a temptation to go, this is the best idea ever, right? A little bit of sort of that bravado, that Trump bravado. Oh, it's fantastic. Things are either fantastic or they're terrible. It doesn't have to be that way. People, in fact, will be more suspicious about an idea that's perfect, where you could actually go a long way to building trust, I think, by just saying, actually, we made a loss over last year. And here's what we invested that in over this time, and here's where we're scheduled to grow, and here are the opportunities we've found and created within the market. You can still have things you talk about, but I think that just flat saying to somebody, actually, we've made a loss in the last year, is probably a more important place to start than this weird wishy-washy, I'm going to be honest thing, and then not being honest before eventually coming clean. It starts to look a little bit shady.
% of each of your companies?
Yes, we're
No.
20%.
So this is an important question. Let me go back.
Not a lot. This year we've made a loss.
Are you offering us 20% of each of your companies?
Yes, we're
No,
offering
no,
you
no, no,
20%
no.
of
Both
both of the
companies.
companies.
So that's 20% split up. So 5% Evolve Through Training, 15% Evolution Solutions.
Hey?
Right. Now, here's a problem. If you say we're offering you 20% of both companies, or if you say we're offering you 20%, then you say there are two companies, then you say we're offering you 20% of both, my mind is always going to jump to the best of those options. If there is any ambiguity in what you're saying, I'm going to go, 20% of one company, right? Great. There's two companies. Oh, great. I get 20% of these two companies put together. And then when you say you get 20% of both, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like what I just heard. Then to say actually it's 5% of one and 15% of another presents me with a problem. These most optimistic assumptions I've been making now suddenly come crashing back down to like, hang on, that's not what I was presented. But I don't just go back down to the level of appeal or sort of, I don't look as positively at it as I would have looked at a 5 and 15 split in two companies. It now looks worse because I feel like I've been deceived. And the two options I've got to go with here about that is either you did deceive me, you do understand that that split is not what I was thinking I was getting and it's now wrong, so you tried to deceive me, or worse, arguably, is you don't understand what I think when I say 20% of two companies. And that kind of ambiguity makes me not trust your business acumen, make me think that you're not a good person to partner with. So it's a really difficult issue to go with. And again, one where I would recommend just lead with the bad news. Just say, I'm offering you 5% of this company and 15% of that company.
How does that work? How does that work?
They're laughing
What
at
do you
me.
mean, how does it work? 5% of involved through
You're actually
training.
giving me 5% of one company and 15% over the other. You're not giving me 20%, are you?
Well, all right, 20% is combined over both companies.
No, it doesn't work like that. One could be worth £100, right? And you give me 20% of it. That's 20 quid. Yeah? Keep it simple. And the other one could be worth...
We are women.
Ouch. So what started to happen? This is, I think, a problem that a lot of us, arguably all of us, face, particularly if we have an idea in our head that we're not willing to question, that will inform how we perceive the world around us, and that are cognitive biases. I think that she has a bias that presumes she sees sexism places. So when he has heard what sounds to me like a really reasonable challenge to somebody who's asked for a lot of investment, they're asking for hundreds of thousands of pounds, and they haven't understood that there is a 5-15% split, and calling that 20% of two companies is either dishonest or a massive misunderstanding of what percentages are, to then go, the only reason he doesn't understand or agree with me is because he's sexist, is going to cause a chunk of problems. One is, as you can see by his response to it, it's not very persuasive. He's not going to be on your side. You've got to feel like, hey, I'm a safe pair of hands, you're right, I'm right, we're both right, and we're going to make money together. Whereas you can see this is about to head in a fairly different direction.
We do, I apologise, but we face
You've
this
got a
every
terrible
day.
attitude.
I tell you, on that point, I've got a serious issue with that comment.
Well,
do you know how many women I work with?
Yes.
And here's the problem, right? If you go, thanks, we are women, even though that makes sense inside your mind, inside the way you're looking at the world, and even if it were accurate, even if he was going, she doesn't get this because she's a woman, you're trying to persuade him to invest. So the truth of that can step aside to the question of, is that going to be an effective way to persuade somebody? Because the obvious assumption that he's going to make, which it appears he has, is you're saying I'm sexist. I was trying to explain a business model to you, and my explanation of that made you go, oh, this guy's sexist. He just thinks less of me because I'm a woman. Now you're going to start having a totally different discussion. And even if that discussion goes well, you haven't got them any closer to investing. And worse, that conversation rarely goes well. Let's take
Do you want to have a guess?
No, I don't know. I can imagine. I can imagine.
Please have a guess.
I've no idea. I don't know who, to be perfectly honest.
You don't know who we are. You've pitched up, asked for £150,000 for 20%, which is actually 5% of one company and 15% of another company. You don't know who we are. You've made a flippant comment about...
It's not flippant, it's very serious.
So the way she's responding throughout this yep, it's not, it's very serious, is what the problem that I get stuck in regularly as well. And that is, I'm trying to think of the defeater for your argument. I'm trying to think of how I can destroy what you're saying and show it to be false, because that's the way I'll persuade you that I'm right. It just doesn't work that way though, does it? That's not how we're persuaded. We're not persuaded by working out that we were wrong on things. Being wrong on things causes us to experience dissonance. If we're experiencing dissonance, our mind's going to be closing. It's interesting to note that when we experience cognitive dissonance, or this clashing of ideas in our head, where on the one hand, everybody sees themselves as a good person, how often do you hear people just self-identify as a sexist? Virtually never. So if on the one hand I'm a good person, but on the other hand you're suggesting to me that I'm a sexist, those ideas won't go well together. And there is some research that suggests we will experience that dissonance almost like an existential threat. We will experience it almost like pain. Some similar areas of the brain are believed to light up, but there's lots of reason to doubt fMRIs. But anyway, we won't get into all of that stuff. It's just a bad persuasion strategy. You're much better listening and then trying to figure out where could we be both right, or where could your objection actually lead back into my solution. And I could easily think of it now, which is, here's the challenge that many people face in the marketplace, and that is they feel that they are being told that they're a sexist. Now you're not. Theo, you're fantastic at your job, and it's excellent to hear that you hire so many women. That's what I want to help other people do, and I want to help you and them make money from doing so. Here's how we can go about doing that. You can turn the whole thing on its head, get it back on track, and get them back focused on the objective here, which is what the dragon's objective is, same as yours, which is we all want to make money. Won't always be everybody's objective, but you'll be able to very easily in most situations pick that objective, call us back to it, and then drive us there far more effectively than you'll be able to shout at them and suggest that they're a sexist. And we see this kind of thing all the time.
No, you made a very flippant comment.
It's very serious.
Because if you'd done your homework, you wouldn't have made a comment.
Jude has incensed Theo Paphitis. Deborah Meaden tries to steer the discussion back to business.
How about we start again and you talk us through your business model and how we make some money, and just want to understand the business. Right. Can you explain to me why you think there aren't more women in the construction industry at the moment?
Fantastic question. These are really good questions. If you're ever looking for a question to ask, that one was a great one, which is essentially helping these people get back to their pitch. I feel like Deborah is trying to help them out here after they've just had clearly come off second best in a fairly heated exchange with somebody they're trying to persuade, to then go, let's talk about the problem that you solve again. Now, this is a question you want to have asked yourself a chunk of times anytime you go to persuade. Not just why would we do this thing or how would we do this thing, but essentially why aren't people already doing this thing? Because if people are going to be naturally opposed to what you're saying, I don't mean completely opposed and they want you to lose, but if you're saying it's A, I will just ask myself the question, hang on, could it be B? It's just a natural thing that humans do. If you've already thought through that and have got some solutions for that, that could be fantastic, because each of those problems that you're outlining can lead you back to your solution, provided you present problems that are realizable, clear, and fixable.
You've got 20 men and 1 woman vying for a position in a building company as a trainee. Whether you like it or not, men still choose to take on men. That is a fact as well.
That is a fact according to who? If you could show me statistics for that, or say when we've blinded the process, here's how we've managed to get more women on building sites, fine. But again, what's the WIFM, the what's in it for me WIFM, which is he's here, they're there to make money. If you say men don't hire women because they're sexist, where's the route to profit there? How do I get something out of that? Again, it's going to be a suggestion that for all of the men present, they're going to experience dissonance. Possibly even the women present are going to experience dissonance. Even if they're on their side, they don't see how I'm going to make any money out of men being sexist on building sites. So it's an interesting thing to think about, which is, even if I'm right about this, is this the path to go down? Or could I present like 9 different reasons why women are underrepresented in job sites, but attach each one of those to a benefit? Which is, people think that women aren't able to lift as much stuff. And one of the excellent things we've noticed is they're right. And by reducing the loads that each person's expected to carry, we reduce injuries as well, or something like that, where you go problem, solution, benefit. Awesome. Great. Don't just tell them they're sexist, though.
Do you know you're beginning to sound like a crusade?
It's a campaign. It's a campaign because it's a niche market. There's a niche in the market.
It's a campaign.
Jude's approach to the business is not impressing the dragons. Peter Jones is ready to have his say.
Using words like campaigning, using words like I want a woman on every building site.
We do.
Well,
Because there are women
do you
out
not
there
see
that
the
don't have that
alienation? Do you not see the
opportunity.
alienation that will ensue?
No.
Well, you've already got 5 dragons pretty hacked.
Well, you know, I'm sorry
If you
about
can do
that.
that in
I really
5
am,
minutes, what are you going to do when you go into the open market and try and sell your services?
We've succeeded.
Exactly. When you're pitching for their idea, they're not just going, is this a good idea? They're going, are you a good captain of this idea? Are you the kind of person who can steer this ship towards calmer seas, smoother sailing, more profit? So what they're also looking at is not just how good are you at presenting this, but how good are you at dealing with challenges. And one of the things you start to notice is a fairly recurring theme of her virtually arguing with feedback. It's a really poor habit. To argue with feedback is one of the most challenging things to work with in the workplace, because any other problem that anybody might have will be fixed by them responding to feedback. But if their problem is that they don't respond to feedback, suddenly it gets a lot more difficult to deal with that problem or any problem that they might have.
We have got the attention of housing associations
you
and
have
authorities
succeeded.
that are
You've
very
succeeded
happy.
at nothing.
She's talking
That's
over
not
him.
strictly true either.
You haven't got a business that makes any money, and you haven't even started a trading business.
Ouch. Oof. Right in the feels.
Now Jude and Chrissy have been blasted by Peter Jones. With emotions running high in the den, Richard Farley steps in to find...
So I could easily believe that head shake was real, right? He feels hacked off. He feels like he's been called a sexist. Now that empathy that he would have had, that wanting you to win, wanting this presentation to go well, has disappeared. If they're not on your side anymore, they won't care if they outwardly demonstrate their lack of approval for you.
Find out what sets
Could still
their
be a pickup.
businesses apart from rival construction and training companies.
You've got a business, the evolution is about hiring out women, is that right? Or women and men?
Men and women.
Both.
Men and women.
Yeah.
And the academy is for men and women. So
Yes.
you've got two businesses.
Yes.
The unique thing about the academy is what?
We deliver not only construction training, but the whole package. We'll address customer focus.
Okay, so nothing to do with men and women.
No.
Then you've got this construction business, which is unique in what sense?
Because we do offer women tradespeople as well as men.
Okay.
We give customers the choice.
You're saying that your construction company, there is a demand out there for people who do want women.
Yep,
Is that right?
absolutely.
It's slightly confusing because your unique selling point is that you've got a high ratio of women, but you still have men.
Yes.
If you come...
Now, this is something fundamental to the pitch that I sometimes do find myself working with companies on this too, where I'm like, put the pitch aside for a moment. What is this product? Because if the product is specifically women, where's this speciality with women, which they do go on to explain later? It's actually technically illegal to just hire or focus on one gender over another. But what it's immediately also done is got rid of their fundamental USP. That's one of the main things you want to recognize as you're going into something. What makes it me that does this? What makes it this particular product, or me specifically with this product, that makes it valuable? Which is why if you go in and you go, this is a unique patented solution for that problem, you suddenly go, wow, that's a unique thing. This is also something I want to point out, how well he just asked those questions where he wants to know what's unique, but then doesn't feed anything else into that. He goes, what is unique about it? Really good, not quite clean question. I talk a lot about clean questions in my training, which is how can you remove all of the assumptions. He doesn't present, is it about gender in his question. He just says, what's unique about it? So he gives them the scope to answer that question specifically about uniqueness in any way that they want. It's a really useful strategy when so often we'll box them into, so what's unique about it is that it focuses on women only or partially, and even if that might be right, it's boxed them into talking about it that way. Whereas his way, I thought, was a really good way of asking that question.
and pitch an idea or your concept that actually said, look, do you know what? My most critical success factor to my whole business model is the fact that I'm going to focus exclusively on women. My whole business model is going to be based around putting more women into construction industry.
Did you see her roll her eyes and shake her head?
Key areas where actually they add value. Really good quality people that were trained through you, Chrissy. They then move over to the business once they're trained, and you then tender the contracts exclusively. You are the female side of the construction industry. I think you now start to have a really good business.
I don't
Now
know
he's
whether we
helping.
can actually do that because of the Discrimination Act.
I don't know that we can do that because of the Discrimination Act, which is, it just proposes more problems. If you're not allowed to discriminate, how can your business even work? And how can you reliably assert that discrimination does happen, if you're saying there is a law against discrimination and our business is focused on fixing discrimination in the workplace, and we aren't able to do what we want to, which is just provide women because of that discrimination law, it seems like that law is both the defeater for why you are necessary, as well as how this business could ever work. It's a tricky one. I mean, this is getting into the issue, not so much how they pitched it, but I think there are still solutions you could have for how you pitch exactly this idea where you say, because of the Discrimination Act, we are going to hire both men and women. It's just we're specifically going to be targeting and recruiting women out of engineering in colleges. We are going to have our look and feel, our branding and logo, which I'm happy to show you, is going to be targeted much more towards women in the workplace. And we are going to feature women higher on our webpage. I don't know if you're allowed to do that, but you can talk about a lot of ways where you will gear it towards something without being discriminatory and to still deal with that problem and possibly get Peter back on side.
You know, this is something you should really find out because
I think you should
if it's your unique selling point, you should really find out.
What I want to say, and I'm going to complete here, is that what you've come in to try and pitch, you've pitched it in such a discriminating way. Your attitude has to change from focusing on the discrimination to focusing on the key benefit.
That's the crucial thing. That is the most valuable feedback you could ever be given. And that is, if you just focus on discrimination, and I think this is a problem I often pose to many of my friends, particularly lefties, but I think people who get a bee in their bonnet about anything, is if you just focus on the problem, it will just cause dissonance and avoidance and resistance. Whereas if you focus on the benefits and the solutions, the conversation is a lot more fun and it becomes less of a why should we do this conversation and often a much more how can we do this conversation. Even on this fairly important sticking issue on whether this business is actually strictly speaking legal, you could potentially get some useful advice from titans of industry who will say, here's actually how you can get around that discrimination law situation, and I'm willing to help work with you to do that because I think this is a great business proposition. But look at how she's already taking breath, already wants to rebut what he's saying rather than work with it and respond well to that feedback.
From focusing on the discrimination to focusing on the key benefit. I'm not going to invest in you, so I'm out.
Peter Jones has heard enough. He's the first dragon out. Theo Paphitis, who clashed with Jude from the start, has also made up his mind.
You came here today looking for someone to invest in you a huge amount of money. If you'd done some homework, you'd have come up here in front of the 5 dragons and made a pitch that might have just persuaded us or invest in you £150,000. I don't believe you're investable. And I won't be investing.
Look at that, she's still shaking her head.
Pounds.
Don't shake your head at people while they're speaking, unless you're not interested in persuading them. I mean, I think the place for debate and sort of owning somebody on the internet can be fun, to shake your head at how silly that argument is. But it's not going to persuade somebody if they're trying to give you feedback at that moment. I mean, it's pretty clear that Theo's out, so maybe it doesn't really matter anymore. But don't shake your head while somebody's trying to give you useful feedback. It's just rude. It's not helpful. It's not useful. It won't win them over.
I don't believe you're investable, and I won't be investing, so I'm out.
There you go.
Now, I can't back you either because you haven't demonstrated that you've found a clear way forward, and so I think you need to learn those lessons before someone can just give you $150,000 to play with. And the uphill climb that you've got to undertake, I'm going to drop out as well. So, ouch. Thank you.
Look at that face.
With Theo Paphitis, Richard Farley and Peter Jones all out, Jude and Chrissy's chances of securing £150,000 are hanging by a thread. Has Deborah Meaden heard anything that will tempt her to back the pair?
Jude, Chrissy, I think you might be onto something if you listen to the advice. Do you know my big concern is watching you, Jude. When you get advice, there's a big sigh and there's a but. You're doing it. Exactly that. That is exact.
This is, again, invaluable advice. You would end up paying me a lot of money to tell you that. It's a provocative situation. It's difficult to get yourself in. And the most useful feedback is always the hardest to take. And the hardest feedback that often people take is you don't take feedback. But it's so interesting. This is what I call a DIRN, D-I-R-N, which stands for doing it right now. She's DIRNing, right? Right in the middle of Deborah saying your problem is that you don't take feedback. You take a big sigh. You take in breath. This is also a somewhat... I would call it rude, but rude is a value judgment. Strikes me as rude is how I would put it. Habit that a lot of us have, myself included, which is midway through somebody else speaking, we go, we take this, which is showing to the other person, I have a response for that. Oh, I want to rebut that. I want to destroy that point you just made. Problem is, it doesn't make people feel like you're listening to them. And if they don't feel you're listening to them, why would they want to listen to you?
Big sigh and there's a but. You're doing it. Exactly that. That is exactly the point.
Yeah, but I listen to everybody and everything.
What we are in here today to look for business opportunities. What you brought to us was a debate that you instigated over discrimination, over women in the workplace, over crusading and campaigning. That's how you started. We have helped you to bring this back onto a business platform.
Yeah.
But every single time we try to talk about something you don't like to hear, you're very, very defensive. Anyway, you're doing it again, Jude. You're not listening to me. So I'm afraid for that reason, I'm out.
Ouch, shaking the head. Oh,
it looks all but over.
I think she's given up on it by now. She's not even trying to be persuasive anymore. So I guess cut her some slack. She's had an awful time and this is, gone out on national TV and is super popular. Like if we scroll down here, what are we looking at? 2 million views on Facebook, that is. So on YouTube, that is. And I'm sure it's been cut up and covered by other people. So she's got an absolute battering and I don't want to just heap further criticism, but I do think it's an important place to look at. How can we persuade? Because here's the thing that I think makes persuasion difficult for her and for all of us. She cares deeply about this issue. She sees this as a really important issue. And that's a problem because the more important we see the issue, the more likely we are to totally forget the what's in it for me, is totally forget the persuasion element and just get stuck into an argument about the environment or whatever else it might be. Instead, what we need to be able to do is switch from that to go, here's the huge profit, here's the advantage, here's the reason we would want to do this, the good feelings at the end of this rainbow.
For Jude and Chrissy, only Duncan Bannatyne now stands between them and expulsion from the den.
I've just found you rude, offensive,
Oof.
very sexist, very discriminatory. I employ a lot of women. I employ more women than I employ men, and they do a fantastic job. Would I employ you? No. Would I invest in you? No. Never. So I'm out.
Ouch.
I've heard worse.
I've heard worse.
If you've heard worse.
It's just something.
If you've heard worse and you keep hearing it, and you keep going to a place and you get up, try going in without that chip on your shoulder. You're the only person who's right. We're all wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody's wrong. You've got a massive chip on your shoulder and a terrible attitude. That's your problem.
Fine.
Even her friend's saying leave it, and then she just says fine. Ouch.
With the words of a furious Duncan Bannatyne ringing in their ears, Jude and Chrissy are leaving the den empty-handed. And
Ouch.
the dragons are smouldering.
Well, that was the hardest work trying to understand a business in that model that I've ever heard. Did we discuss business?
No.
Were there actually any?
Do you know what? She hasn't got a chip on her shoulder. She's finely balanced. She's got one on each shoulder.
Yeah, well said. Well said, sir.
Ow. So what's the solution here? I mean, the solution for them, I think, is, let me just double check this actually. Evolve Training Solutions. Okay. So maybe they do still exist. Oh, no, that's an Australian company. Because I'm pretty sure, yeah, they don't exist anymore. I found the UK Business Registry and they had shut down within, I think, a few months of airing on the TV. It wasn't a great business to start off with, but it could have been. Here's the challenge. Focus on breathing. Slow down your breathing through your nose, and you're more likely to be able to think in terms of what's going to persuade this other person. Less likely to have that perceiving threat. So when we start breathing too rapidly, we're more likely to have panic thoughts, and those panic thoughts are typically perceiving threats, which is going to lead to fight or flight responses, right? Argue back or fine, get out of the room. It's not going to help. Because then, if you're panicked and you're fight or flight, anytime anybody challenges you, instead of thinking the more solution-oriented thought, the more useful thought to think is, oh, they want to understand more about the business and they're challenging it in order to make sure it's robust. I'm confident it is. Here's my response. We're going to think you just think I'm dumb because I'm a woman. And then we're going to get stuck in a you just think I'm dumb because I'm a woman, where because my dissonance is high, because it's confirming to me this this conception I had that you're a sexist and that's why this business is so important, we're going to get stuck in a debate where I try to make your dissonance go high by causing the same problems to happen within you. It doesn't get us anywhere. So instead, breathe, focus on the solution, and present opportunities to people. Present to them excitement and profit and things that they can get something out of, rather than bumbling through and arguing with people. And last is, seek out and accept feedback in proportion to how difficult it is to hear. Somebody gives you some feedback that you should part your hair differently, and you go, oh, great, that's a good idea. Sure, still act on the feedback. That could be useful, but it's probably not the most useful feedback you've ever received. Whereas if you get some feedback that's so harsh that it makes you want to roll your eyes and sigh and sort of bloviate and insult your audience, that's probably some really useful feedback to take. It's certainly been some of the most useful feedback I've ever received. So if you've got any feedback you'd like to give me, please leave it in a comment down below. Please be kind to the people I've featured in this video. There is however slim a chance that they will see it, and I want for you to think about, just the same as their presentation might have kicked off some dissonance in you, or indeed things I might have said might have kicked off some dissonance in you, and you want to argue, find a persuasive way to make those points. That would be my suggestion to you. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to leave this running out on the last bit of feedback that she refuses to take, and demonstrates to the presenter of the show that she hasn't learned anything.
Jude, Chrissy, are you blaming yourselves?
Nope. They loved me, didn't they?
Were you aggressive or nervous?
How does that work?
Well, what do you mean, how does it work? That is, unfortunately, my manner. I am...
You're like that?
Yeah. We both say what we believe in.
What about the chip on your shoulder?
No, not a chip. I get frustrated. And when you want to change something for the better, and the reason you can't is because you're a woman, you know, it does vex me. I've heard worse. I don't apologise for how I am. I have to be like this to survive in the industry. And if you're not, you just leave it.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.